Before I tell you what happened that night, I want to ask you something first. From which city are you watching us tonight? I always love hearing from new places. And this story is something I've never shared before. Not fully. It's not something I planned. It wasn't something I ever thought I would even feel, let alone act on. It started with a knock, a soft, almost hesitant knock on my bedroom door. It was just after midnight. I remember the time clearly because I had just looked at the clock. I was lying in bed, the TV still on low volume, flickering shadows across the room, the scent of lavender still clinging to my skin from the lotion I just used. My old bones were aching, as they always did in the quiet of night, and I was seconds away from turning off the lamp when the knock came. First I thought I imagined it, but then it came again. 3 gentle raps. I sat up, clutching the edge of the blanket, heart giving one of those quiet stutters that happen when something feels off. You know what I mean, right? That unease that comes when you feel something is different, even if nothing looks that way yet. Mom, a voice said low through the door. Daniel, my son. Daniel wasn't a boy anymore. He was a grown man minus 29 years old, strong, tall, and quiet in ways that often made him seem older than he was. Ever since he'd moved back in after the breakup with his fiancée, he kept to himself mostly. We talked during the day, little things like dinner or errands, but we hadn't really talked. Not like we used to, not like when he was younger and still needed me. But that night, that knock, it wasn't casual. I opened the door slowly, expecting to see him, maybe holding a phone, worried about something. Maybe he needed help. Maybe a bad dream. But no. Daniel stood there shirtless, wearing only a pair of sweatpants, his hair slightly damp like he'd just come out of the shower. His eyes met mine in a way that immediately felt different. There was something in them. An intensity of vulnerability that made me step aside before even asking what he needed. Can I come in? He asked. I nodded, voice caught somewhere between concern and confusion. I watched him cross the room, sit down on the edge of my bed like he used to when he was little and couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking, he said after a long pause, about everything about us. This house. I sat beside him. What's going on, sweetheart? He didn't look at me at first, just stared ahead at the TV where a silent infomercial was playing, casting a blue light on both of our faces. I've been feeling something, he said, his voice quieter now. Something I don't understand. A pause. I didn't know what to say. At that moment, I didn't even want to say anything. I just wanted to listen. You've always been there for me, Mom. You've taken care of me, protected me. And lately I look at you, and he finally turned his head, and his eyes locked with mine. It's not just that I see you differently. It's that I feel different around you. My throat tightened. My first instinct was to brush it off, to protect him, maybe even protect myself from where it might go. But instead I reached out and touched his hand gently. He didn't pull away. Daniel, I whispered. You're scaring me a little. His grip tightened slightly on mine. I know. I'm scaring myself. There was silence. Heavy, real, hanging between us like mist in the air. My heart was beating faster now, but not from fear, from confusion, from something else, something I didn't want to name just yet. He looked down, his voice cracking a little. I've never said this to anyone, and maybe I'm wrong to say it, but you deserve honesty even if it costs me everything. And then he said it. He told me how he'd been feeling. How something in him had shifted over the last few months. That being close to me under this roof, seeing me in my robe in the mornings, hearing my laugh from the kitchen. He said it stirred something in him that he didn't know how to handle. I was frozen, not because I was angry, not even because I was shocked, but because deep down I'd felt something too. A closeness that had crept in without warning. It wasn't just about missing having someone in my bed, or the silence that followed widowhood. It was about him, my son, the man he'd become. And the worst part, the part that made me afraid to even breathe. I didn't hate what he said. I didn't feel disgusted. I didn't recoil. I just felt warm, confused, unsteady. And maybe that scared me more than anything else. I looked at him and said, Daniel, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he said. I just needed you to know. I needed you to hear it from me because keeping it inside was killing me. He stood up slowly like he expected me to scream or cry or push him away, but I didn't. He paused at the door. If you never want to talk about this again, I'll understand. I'll respect whatever you want. And then he left just like that, leaving me sitting on the edge of the bed, heart pounding, a million thoughts swimming in my mind, The sound of his footsteps fading down the hallway like a dream, I wasn't sure I was ready to wake up from. I sat there for hours, literally hours, replaying the words, the look in his eyes, the softness in his voice. And then the part of me I didn't know existed began to stir. A part one hadn't felt in years. A woman's part, not just a mother's. That night sleep never came. Only questions, only feelings. And a door that had now been opened, even if neither of us knew exactly what was waiting on the other side. All the next day, I moved through the house like a ghost. Every room felt different, even though nothing had changed, not visibly anyway. The sunlight still poured through the kitchen window in the morning. The coffee still brewed with that familiar gurgling sound. Daniel still came downstairs like always, hair tousled, rubbing his eyes, greeting me with a soft morning mom. But I could feel it. We both could. Something unspoken hung between us now, thick and quiet. I didn't know how to look at him, and yet I couldn't help watching him. How his shoulders shifted under that old gray t-shirt. How he avoided my gaze but still lingered close, as though waiting for a signal I wasn't ready to give. We ate in near silence. He asked if I needed anything from the store. I said no. He told me he'd take the trash out. I just nodded. The hours passed. I kept glancing at the clock like time might deliver me an answer if I watched it hard enough, but it didn't. It was nearly evening when I found myself folding laundry in the den, hands shaking slightly as I lifted one of Daniel's t-shirts to my nose. It smelled like him. Faint cologne and something clean, something warm, and in that moment it all rushed back. His words from the night before, the ache in his voice, the look in his eyes. I didn't want to feel what I was feeling, but I did. And when I finally sat down with a glass of wine, it wasn't to numb myself. It was to calm the storm that had been building inside me. Around 9:00 p.m., I heard his footsteps in the hallway. I turned down the TV volume again just like the night before. Only this time my door was slightly ajar. He paused outside. I saw his shadow. He didn't knock. He just waited. I don't know what possessed me to do it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe longing. But I stood up and walked toward the door slowly. I opened it just a little wider, revealing him in the hallway, arms crossed loosely, barefoot, face unreadable. "Can we talk?" he asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. Daniel entered slowly like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. I sat down on the edge of the bed. He remained standing, eyes flicking around the room, avoiding mine. "I wasn't going to say anything again," he said quietly. "But today I couldn't stop thinking. And I figured it's worse to keep pretending nothing happened than to risk the truth again." I nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. So he continued. "I know it's wrong," he said. "I know it sounds wrong, but I can't help how I feel, Mom. I look at you and I don't just see my mother. I see a woman. A woman who's beautiful, kind, strong. Someone who makes me feel safe. Someone I want to protect, too." My eyes stung. I looked down at my hands, trying to steady the shake in them. "You're not crazy for feeling that," I said finally. "Don't know what this is. I just know that last night after you left, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing your voice in my head. I kept feeling something I haven't felt in years." He took a slow step forward. "You don't hate me?" he asked. "No," I whispered. "I don't." He exhaled like the air had been trapped inside him all day. Then he sat beside me. Not too close but not far either. "You don't know what it's been like for me," he said. "Living here again, seeing you every day, waking up to your voice, smelling your perfume when you pass by. It's like something inside me woke up, and I've been fighting it hard but it won't go away." I looked at him, really looked at him. Daniel wasn't a boy anymore. He hadn't been for a long time. The little freckles on his cheeks had faded. The softness of his face was now angular masculine. His voice had that quiet weight to it. And the way he looked at me, it wasn't like a son. Not anymore. And I wasn't just his mother in that moment. I was a woman aching to be seen, to be felt. "Maybe we should take some space," I offered softly. "You could stay with a friend for a while just to clear your head." His jaw tensed. "That's what you want." "I don't know what I want, I admit it. But I know this. Last night changed something for both of us." He nodded slowly and stood up. "I'll give you space, but I'm not taking back what I said. I meant every word." As he turned to go, I reached out. My fingers brushed his hand. "Daniel." He paused, looked down at our hands, then up at me. Do you ever think, I said carefully, that maybe some connections aren't meant to be understood? That maybe they just are? He blinked slowly, swallowing hard. All the time, he said. And then, without another word, he left the room. But the air he left behind was anything but still. The next morning I found myself staring at my reflection in the mirror longer than usual. There was something different in my face, something I couldn't quite name. Not youth. No. I'd long since made peace with the lines around my eyes and the soft sag of skin beneath my jaw. But this morning there was a flush to my cheeks that hadn't been there in years. An awareness in my own body I thought I'd buried after my husband passed. I didn't know what to do with it. I spent the day trying to stay busy, gardening, wiping down kitchen counters that were already clean, scrolling through old photos on my phone. Anything to distract me from the tension humming under my skin. Daniel didn't come down until noon. He looked like he hadn't slept, hair messy, dark circles under his eyes. He barely said a word as he poured himself coffee. I was slicing apples at the counter, and when our eyes finally met, it was like we were both flung back to the night before. I'm going to stay at a friend's place tonight, he said, finally breaking the silence. Just for a few days. I think we both need that. I nodded, lips pressed together. Maybe that's for the best. But as soon as he left, the house felt too quiet. Empty in a way that wasn't peaceful. I walked room to room like a widow all over again. The space that had once been filled with comfort now thick with questions I couldn't answer. What did it mean? What we had said to each other? Was it just loneliness? Was it grief, twisting itself into something warmer, more dangerous? Or was it something else entirely? By the second night I came and texted him. Just something simple. Are you okay? He replied within seconds. Not really. I miss you. And then a second message. Can I come over tomorrow? I stared at the screen, heart beating like I was 20 again, not 63. I typed and deleted my response twice before finally writing. Yes, come after dinner. The next day felt slow and strange. I cooked even though I didn't know if we'd be eating together. I picked a wine I hadn't opened since my birthday. I even wore a blouse I usually reserved for dinner out. Deep burgundy, just low-cut enough to remind me I was still a woman beneath all these years. He arrived just after 7. We didn't hug, we didn't smile, we just stood there. And then I stepped aside and let him and Daniel sat down on the living room couch while I poured us both a glass of wine. I could feel his eyes on me as I moved, studying the shape of my body, the sway of my hips. There was no hiding it anymore. I wasn't sure you'd say yes, he said as I handed him the glass. I wasn't sure either, I answered. But I kept thinking, maybe this doesn't have to be as confusing as we're making it. He blinked. How do you mean? I sat beside him, close this time. What if it's not about labels or rules? What if it's about what two people feel when they're alone in a room and the rest of the world disappears? He swallowed hard, his fingers tightening around the stem of the glass. Do you still feel it? I asked. He looked into my eyes. More than ever. The room fell into a kind of stillness I hadn't known since before my husband died. Quiet, intimate, electric. I could feel the warmth of his thigh near mine, the tremble in his breath. He was waiting. I reached out and touched his hand again, just like I had that night at the door. Only this time I didn't stop there. My fingers slid over his knuckles, and he let out a shaky breath. Daniel, I said gently, you need to understand. I am scared. Not of you, not of what I feel, but of what this could do to us, to me, to you. He leaned in just a bit, not too close, but enough for me to feel the gravity of what was hanging in the space between us. You make me feel alive again, he said. Not just wanted seen. Like I'm not just someone's son, like I'm a man. I felt the tears rising hot and fast. I haven't felt beautiful in a long time, I whispered. You are, he said immediately. You always have been. And in that moment I believed him. I didn't think of what was expected. I didn't think of how it looked. I thought only of what I felt, that pulsing, aching closeness that had grown quietly over months, now blooming into something undeniable. I leaned in, pressing my forehead gently to his. Just tell me one thing, I said. Are we going to regret this? He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. Only if we run from it. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The way we sat there, hands clasped, breathing each other in, was answer enough for now. We didn't cross any lines that night. But they were right there in front of us, and all it would take was one more step. The night stretched on. heavy with silence that spoke louder than words. We didn't move from the couch for what felt like hours. Just sat there, our fingers intertwined, hearts beating like war drums in our chests. There was no rush, no pressure, only the weight of everything unsaid, hovering between us. I'd been with one man my entire life. My late husband was good to me, faithful, kind, but our intimacy had faded long before he passed. After his death, I never allowed myself to imagine being wanted again. At least not like this. But with Daniel it was different and terrifying. "You don't have to be afraid," he said, his voice low and steady, his thumb brushing over the back of my hand. "I am, though I admit it. Not just of what this means but of how deep it goes. I don't even know when it started. One day you were just my son. And then suddenly I started seeing things I wasn't supposed to." He nodded, leaning back slightly, his shoulder brushing against mine. "It was never sudden for me. It was slow, quiet. I'd catch myself watching you do the simplest things, folding laundry, talking on the phone, laughing to yourself while cooking. And I'd feel this pull like I was waking up to something I didn't have a name for. I didn't know whether to be moved or terrified by that confession. Maybe both. And then he said something I'll never forget. 'You don't stop being a woman just because you're a mother.' That broke something open inside me. My chest tightened and I turned my face away so he wouldn't see the tears. But he did, and he reached out so gently and turned my chin back toward him. 'I see you,' he whispered. 'All of you.' Our lips were inches apart. My heart was pounding. I could feel the heat radiating between us. My body felt alive in a way it hadn't in years. Every nerve ending tingling, my breath catching in my throat. But I needed clarity. I needed something real, something grounding. "Daniel," I whispered. "What are we doing?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked into my eyes with such raw honesty, I felt my defenses crumble. "We're following what's true," he said finally. "Even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, even if it scares us." My voice trembled. "And what happens tomorrow, next week?" "We take it slow," he said. "We don't rush. We don't hide. We just stay open, honest with each other." That was what I needed to hear because I wasn't foolish enough to think this would be simple, but I also wasn't willing to bury it anymore. The next moment didn't come with fanfare. No dramatic music, no lightning strike, just a soft inhale as I leaned in and kissed his cheek. A kiss that lingered. A kiss that said, "I hear you. I feel this too." And then slowly, cautiously, his lips found mine. It was tender, hesitant, full of reverence. Like neither of us wanted to break whatever spell we had stepped into. We held each other for a long time after that. Just held. No rush. No crossing into places we weren't ready to go. Only the warmth of connection. Eventually we moved to the bed. Not for passion but for closeness. We lay under the blankets side by side, his hand in mine. Our breaths in rhythm. I hadn't felt that kind of peace in years. "Thank you," I whispered, my head on his shoulder. "For what?" he murmured. "For seeing me." And that night I slept. Really slept for the first time in a long, long while. In the days that followed we talked honestly, often, sometimes carefully. We didn't make any declarations. We didn't try to fit what we had into neat little boxes. We just stayed connected, careful, curious, and very much aware that something powerful had awoken between us. We both knew the world wouldn't understand. But in the quiet of our home, in a safe space of each other's arms, we didn't need the world. We only needed each other. And sometimes that's